Hello there and welcome back to some more Gran Turismo 5. Today we'll continue on with Let's Play, and this is episode 20. In today's episode we are taking a look at the Jeff Gordon NASCAR School Intermediate level. Time to learn a little bit more NASCARing from the legend that is Jeff. This unlocks at level 9, as you can see, and it consists of 4 tests, and they're all basically the same. 2 tests focus on inside line driving at both Daytona and Indy, and then 2 tests focus on outside lane driving at Daytona and Indy. Yeah, as I said, pretty straightforward. The inside driving tests are the harder. The key to this one is essentially just keeping a consistent steering angle. You don't want to steer too much because you'll end up in the infield. You don't want to steer too little because otherwise you'll end up over the cones. This is a lot easier with a steering wheel, it does have to be said, but you can do it on a controller, as I just proved there. So there is a thin line on this one between what's going to pass it and what isn't, but yeah, it's still not too bad, and as you can see, it does pay pretty bloody well. The inside driving at Daytona, probably the most difficult test we're going to have to do here today, because as I said, the rest of these are reasonably straightforward, which is nice. Next up we have the inside driving test at Indianapolis. Of course, Indy is a little bit more of a tighter NASCAR course, so this one in theory would be a little bit more challenging. However, in practice, because the game doesn't particularly account for Indy being a slower circuit, and what I mean by that is it doesn't think you're going to go as quick as you usually do. It's not too bad, just a lot of throttle management in this one, essentially just to try and make sure you don't overcook it into the cones. As you can see there, pretty straightforward golding, but unlike with Daytona where it's about steering angle, this one's just about throttle management. You don't really want to be using the brakes all that much. Indy isn't really that sort of corner, and that's where the AI and yeah, just the AI fall apart in this game, because they like to brake at Indy, at least in NASCARs. Don't get me wrong, when it gets to the higher downforce stuff, they don't like to do it as much, but they will brake around the bank corners of Indy, which you don't really need to. It's just more about throttle management and just making sure you're in a position to comfortably drive. Anyways, the outside driving, and this one I got gold on first time round, or at least the first attempt where I finished, because there was a few failures here. But again, consistent steering angle, and as I said, I actually find this to be the easier than the inside line, because it's not so much about controlling your angle with the infield, which does feel a little bit weird. With this, you can be a little bit more consistent because you don't need as much steering input to get the car around the wider line, which is nice. So yeah, a lot easier, and as you can see, you get 70 grand for getting all 3 trophies, so a very, very good payout for the Jeff Gordon NASCAR School. While he might get on your tits a little bit with his constant bitching about, well, failing, once you do get it right, you do get a decent amount of money from it. And then finally, we have the outside driving at Indianapolis. Who could have predicted that? And you won't believe it, but much like with the previous test, the first attempt where I finished, actually I say first attempt where I finished, I think this was the first attempt I did entirely, like completely, I just passed straight away, was gold. And much like the inside driving at Indy, it's more about throttle management than your consistent steering angle. As you can see, a little bit of throttle management, not too much of the brake, just make sure you don't clatter the wall, and away we are. Boom, done. And that's Jeff Gordon's NASCAR School for today, completed with all golds. This is probably the easiest block of the Jeff Gordon NASCAR School. I'd say some of the beginner tests are actually a little bit harder than this one, than these ones. It's just more teaching you how to drive around these NASCAR ovals, which, again, I mean, they're ovals, they're not particularly difficult, don't get me wrong. You know, I do struggle at Daytona. I'm not one of these people who think all ovals are the same, because they're not. There's just not particularly much skill in driving a game that isn't entirely trying to simulate the whole oval experience. and your reward for completing that is absolutely nothing at all, but we have just made 280,000 credits from it, so maybe not no reward at all. Anyways, that's it for today's episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Next time we are going to be taking a look at the Clubman Cup Back to A-Spec events. Join us for that. Until then, farewell.
Yes, I will stay.